Fans, welcome back to Lock On Astros. And the Houston Astros just added a major piece to a World Series puzzle for 2023. They got Jose Abreu. This is a not reigning MVP. He's a former MVP, but the dude mashes. He barrels baseballs, and he's got a Cuban connection. I think this is a really good signing, and Yankees fans are pretty upset. I mean, they settled for Rizzo. We got Abreu. We're going to talk about this and some other things on tonight's edition of Locked On Astros.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Huysman and Brett H-Town Wheelhouse Chancey.
We are Locked On Houston Astros, and we hope that you join us for a daily Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. You can find me on Twitter at Eric Talk Stros. Find the show at Locked On Astros, your team every day. Brett, where can I find you at?
They can find me at H-Town Wheelhouse on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and TikTok. They can find me at Stros411 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Always positive, always Stros. Sorry about the audio in the background, but we're good.
Alrighty. So, yeah, this was a big day for the Houston Astros. The Astros finally got a guy that apparently they've been targeting all offseason. So while we're thinking that they're going after Anthony Rizzo, Chandler Rome says that this was their guy the whole time. And this was a guy that can add some defense. He can add an offense. And he's just the all-around package. And the Houston Astros got their guy. And so we'll talk about that. What does this mean for Yuli Gurriel? I just did a TikTok live, and a lot of people kept on saying, what about Yuli? What about Yuli? Does that mean he's coming back? And then who else is on the market for the Astros? Now that you settled first base, what other options are there? So we're going to discuss all this and more on this edition of the Locked On Astros podcast. And thank you for making the Locked On Astros podcast your first listen every day, whether it's on YouTube. Go and subscribe to us. Go and give us a big fat like while you're there. And go ahead and listen to the audio version on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to your podcast. Check out the Locked On Astros podcast, your team every day. So, yeah, I was actually kind of surprised. Luckily, I stayed home today because of the water boil notice in Houston. And so I was able to write an article for Gallery Sports. I was able to do a couple TikToks, and I was just kind of like, oh, wait. Bob Nightingale just said that Jose Abreu is signing with the Houston Astros. Then he later said he's signing a 3-year deal. Then Chandler Rome later said, the contract is about $60 million. It ended up being a little bit short. I think it's $58.5 million or something like that, but it's 3 years, $19.5 million for he's going to be 36-year-old first baseman once the season starts. So this is definitely an interesting signing for the Astros, but a much needed one.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's perfect because you talk about a guy that in 2022 struck out 16.2% of the time, and that was it. He is a career 311 hitter with runners in scoring position, Eric. This guy, all he does is hit when guys are on base. He can hit home runs, and, he's kind of slow around the base paths. He's not your speed guy, obviously, but he is, he's getting up there in years. But a great signing, a signing that the White Sox, that if he leaves, I wonder who else is leaving Chicago, the South Side, because he's been a main piece in their organization. And I would go to say, Eric, in the 120-something year history of the Chicago White Sox, Jose Abreu has to be a top 5 player in their organization of all time. And that's a lot to say about a player with a single organization and his impact. And I think the impact someone like Jose Abreu can bring is, number one, he hasn't had a chance to be on a championship caliber ball club. Number two, he still has a connection with other Cuban players because we know the White Sox do a very good job in that area. And three, he fits the mold of the Astros. And this signing, Eric, actually takes away the sting a little more of someone like a Maldonado in the lineup. If you start the season with the center field and Jake Myers is your center fielder, Chas McCormick is maybe your DH and Jake Myers is your center fielder because you don't go get one, those one or two glaring spots in the lineup are a lot less, like, I guess they're a lot what's the
easier to
word I'm
work
looking
with.
for?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the blow that you take, the
Right.
hit that you take, I'm sorry, I'm looking for words here. It is a softened blow when you
Right.
have one or two guys, and then 1 through 7, Eric. I mean, this dude won MVP. This guy's been in the MVP vote. He's a multi-year All-Star. Just, go look at his spray chart. It's unbelievable. This guy hits all parts of the field, Look at that. Home runs, doubles, singles with runners in scoring position. It is just phenomenal to see this guy's spray chart.
And so if you look at some of these blue ones right here, I know you can't see where my cursor is going, but look at left field. Think about how short our left field is at Minute Maid Park. Some of those were doubles. Yeah, they're more line drives, but I think he'll hit a lot more home runs at Minute Maid Park. I think that last year he was making an effort to maybe go towards more of a batting average. He said that one of his goals this offseason was to bring back some of his home runs, but he still had a OPS plus of 133. Yuli Gurriel had an OPS plus of 84. And so you're making a big upgrade here. They both had 40 doubles, but the difference was 7 home runs, 300 batting average versus 242 batting average. And OPS in general is 647 for Gurriel and 824 for Abreu. So it just that's a big difference when you're talking about building a consistent offense. That's what the Astros did
Right.
not have in 2022. They had a good offense. They didn't have a consistent offense. And so let's just look at what he does according to Baseball Savant,
Yeah,
some of his
definitely.
numbers. His average exit velocity, it's in the top 3. He's only trailing behind 2 people, Aaron Judge and Yordan Alvarez. His mass exit velocity is 89, and his hard hit percentage is 97. His xWOBA is 96. His expected batting average is in the top 98th percentile. So I know these are the percentiles and not necessarily his
Well, that's
what he
okay, but
does.
here's the thing. Let
Yeah.
me just put this into perspective because you're making an excellent argument here for Jose Abreu. Baseball Savant also wrote an article, I guess, a few days before this went down, and they said the best bat that's a free agent outside of Aaron Judge is pretty much Jose Abreu.
Right.
You can't get a more disciplined plate guy, like a barrel guy. Literally, listen, 311 lifetime with runners in scoring position. What has been one of the Astros' biggest weaknesses throughout the season? Hitting with runners in scoring position. Now you bring in a veteran who's protected behind him, and it's something to see, dude. This is really, really cool.
I do like the he's in a one percentile in arm strength, so he's not going to be making a lot of double plays at second base, like first to second to
So
first.
what are you
But
saying? He doesn't have a very strong arm, Eric?
that I'm just looking what Baseball Savant is showing me. So, but definitely he's the guy the Astros probably needed. He's a good clubhouse guy. If you're going to lose somebody like a Yuli Gurriel, we'll talk about him in a second. But you've got to bet on somebody like Abreu to come in. He's been the clubhouse leader. He is another Cuban. He can work with Alvarez, help him further develop his career. And Pedro Leon is coming up as well at some point. We'll talk about
Yeah.
Pedro Leon in a little bit. But before we do that, this episode is brought to you by Bet Online.
That's right. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends of every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer to esports, we've got it all on BetOnline.net. Hey, The USA needs one goal, and they need to shut out Iran to move on out of pool play. And they can do it with one goal. So if you want to bet the over under, if it's plus or minus 1 or 1.5 goals, go check that out. Go see what the line is and cheer for USA. Go red, white, and blue. Let's go. So also, if you love sports podcasts, go to Bet Online. It's the easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet Online, where the game starts.
Alrighty, so a lot of people are asking, like, wait, what were they asking? They're asking his defensive metrics. So I don't have everything in front of me,
He's
but I do know that he's worth, according to Fangraphs, he's worth one defensive run saved at first base last year. Baseball Savant measured him as 0 outs above average, but Yuli Gurriel basically was in the negative numbers in both those sites. So he does represent a upgrade at first base defensively. And remember how last year Dusty Baker kept on saying, well, Gurriel is my gold glover. Well, if this guy had a better defensive season than somebody that Baker kept on saying, my gold glover, then yeah, this is an upgrade defensively. This is an upgrade offensively. I don't know. It may be a wash clubhouse wise, but I still think that there's a chance the Astros bring back Yuli Gurriel. But he's going to have, at the age of 38, he's going to have to realize that he's not a full-time player anymore. Can he accept the role of a super utility guy? Can he go out there and play multiple positions? Can he play first base, second base? So he's played that before. Maybe he can play a couple of innings at shortstop. I doubt it, but third base is also.
Yeah, he came up as a third baseman.
Yeah.
And so he came up as a third baseman, and that was his original position. He would be first, second, and third. They would not put him at short. Yuli is too old and doesn't move fast enough. He's kind of a sloth when it comes to the shortstop position. But here's my only question about that is, as much as we love Yuli, Eric, and as much as we've been on the like, don't get rid of Yuli. There's been a lot of people just cut him, just get rid of him because he's been terrible all through the regular season. Does Yuli take a valued roster spot from someone that could then come in and also help? Or, I mean, is it time for Yuli to hang it up? Is it time for him to not be playing and to switch into like a liaison role to Cuban players? Is that where he is in his career? Is that where the Astros are going to try to push him towards? Because you've got David Hensley, who I think is a poor man's Aledmus Diaz and can probably give you more than Aledmus Diaz because you don't have the injury history with him. And literally, when we've talked about this, Hensley has played every infield position. He's played the outfield. He's played everywhere on the field except for pitcher and catcher. And so right now, I am not upset if Yuli doesn't end up on this roster. I think Yuli may actually take a spot from a more able-bodied person. And he is an upgrade. Now, Yuli has been a gold glover. Yuli is an excellent defensive first baseman, but his best years are behind him. JJ Matijevic will also be someone that will get playing time, that will get consideration. So we've got some of the lesser played players, but I think we've got enough, Eric, to where if we don't sign Yuli, it's going to be okay. I think the Astros will be fine.
Yeah. So I think that a lot of people are pointing to what Yuli did in the playoffs, and that was great. He actually carried the Astros at one point when Alvarez's bat went cold. He kept it going, waiting for Altuve to get hot in the World Series. So yes, Yuli is a valuable asset on this team. And if you look at what could happen, the Astros are injury away, just away from needing somebody to play first base. So you never know what's going to happen. So yeah,
Right.
potentially adding Yuli Gurriel is a big key, but would he take that lesser role? Would he want to go? He's 38. It's like, this could be his last chance to play every day. So I think that Yuli Gurriel is weighing all those decisions right now. And so, but going forward, I know somebody just asked about Gary Sanchez. Is he somebody the Astros could bring in as a backup catcher? I
He's
don't think at this point of his career that Gary Sanchez is a backup catcher. I think that yes, his offense has kind of taken a backseat, but I think that if you bring him in maybe as a DH dash backup catcher, maybe. But I think according to Bob Nightingale, the Astros have already had talks to Wilson Contreras. This is something we've talked about many times on the show about signing with the Astros. He could be that backup catcher. You probably have somebody like Corey Lee as well, getting some experience, but he could also play catcher. But you can have Wilson Contreras as your DH. But I think that the Astros and Buster Olney kind of reinforced this. We've been talking about this for a while. The reason why I was very pro Rizzo is the Astros need another big lefty bat in the lineup. And I know that we don't want to hear about this guy anymore, but Bob Nightingale brought up a couple names that the Astros are having internal conversations about. Then I'll bring up a name that Matt Schaub brought up, and then we can talk about that. But Bob Nightingale said the Astros are having internal conversations about Andrew Benintendi and also Cody Bellinger to come play with the Astros. They haven't reached out to him yet, but they're kind of monitoring the market. And also Michael Schwab. Did I say Matt Schwab? I think I said Matt Schwab.
you said Matt Schwab, but I was going to let you go.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking of back to the good quarterback days. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But I think Schwab said that he heard rumors that the Astros are actually talking to Brandon Nimmo right now. So Brandon Nimmo would take up a big chunk of change for the Astros. By my calculations, they have about 47 million before they reach the luxury tax threshold. To sign Brandon Nimmo, who's very coveted, it's going to take
Now,
about 22 million a year.
it's going to take about a 6-year contract too. He's
Maybe
not
not
going to
that
take.
long. Maybe 4 to
He's
5.
I've been told he's looking for at least 6 years.
Okay.
That's what I've been told. I've also been told that the whole Bellinger thing is losing traction, that it had traction a couple days ago, but it's actually losing traction. So we know Bellinger is pretty much, I think, off to the wayside. And another thing we got to remember, I was listening today in a Spaces, and Chandler Rome was talking, and he said, look, whenever you see reports about the club has reached out, he goes, that could have been like a 30-second phone call. That could have been like, hey, we're considering your guy. We'll talk to you soon. Click. It could literally be a passing conversation. It could be a text. Chandler Rome said, I have Boris's, cell phone number. I could contact Boris. I could reach out to him, and you could say Chandler Rome from the Houston Chronicle has reached out to Scott Boris. So the tough thing about we have, because don't get lost in this, okay? And a friend of mine reminded me of this, Eric. When you have a lineup as powerful as the Houston Astros, you can have a couple holes in the lineup. You can have a Maldonado and a Myers in the lineup, and it's not going to have a
Right.
massive negative effect. So we don't have to have a 1 through 9 gangbusters. We already have the best lineup in the American League right now. So yeah, that was just because I didn't put anybody else in that position on the team, or even have Brantley on there. But yeah, you're correct. You're correct on that.
I know. I was just like, no, Jake Myers is not my DH. I'm not signing
No,
up for this.
he was kind of a placeholder, I
Right.
guess, for what I'm
I
saying.
know. We had a conversation before the show, and you're like, "Well, who's going to be DH with the current roster?" I'm like, "Brett, the DH is not on the roster at the moment. There's a chance that Yainer Diaz could impress in spring training. There's a chance that we in that Spaces, Chandler Rome said that Dusty Baker and Jeff Bagwell are both big proponents of Pedro Leon. So if Pedro Leon has a big spring training, he could earn his way onto the roster and force maybe Alvarez back to the DH spot. But I think that the Astros see how much better Alvarez hits when he's batting when he's actually playing the field, and he's got a great arm. And that's what a lot of people, I mean, I think a lot of people see it now, but people didn't see that before. But this guy is just great. So, no, a lot of people were asking earlier, do the Astros have to give up a prospect because Abreu was offered a qualifying offer? No, he was not. He already was accepted. He was offered one earlier, I think in 2019, but then he accepted it. So you can only be offered one once in your career. So he did not, unlike Anthony Rizzo, you did not have to give up a prospect. You did not have to give up any draft pool money, anything like that. So this is probably the best. And last year, only 10 qualified hitters averaged a harder exit velocity than Jose Abreu's 22.2 miles per hour. Of those 10, only 2 of them had a higher batting average. That's why I meant to say earlier, it was Aaron Judge and Alvarez. So he also has a career 19.8 strikeout rate and a 76.7% contact rate. But he actually he cut down on the strikeouts last year. He had a better strike zone judgment. And as I talked about on the live on TikTok, that could be a fact that, you know, how Justin Verlander, he got a little bit older. He knew he couldn't throw the ball by everybody anymore. So he kind of adjusted how he pitches. So a lot of hitters maybe cut back on their swing a little bit, maybe so they don't go for the home run anymore and just try to go for the good batting average. But even if he's still a 15 to 20 home run guy batting 300 with a 8-something OPS, I'll take that from my first baseman.
Yeah, and this is something interesting, and this is what I want to kind of hit on here for a couple minutes. He said, take a second to embellish in us discussing the current state of things, and what a time to be alive and to be an Astros fan. I mean, that is so true. We are living in a just treasure trove of valuable players, of players that, I mean, this is almost like what the NBA does when they build these super teams, you know, like the Golden State Warriors or the Cavaliers or the Heat, or these guys that go on these 2, 3, 4 year runs. I mean, Eric, this team is on a 6-year run right now, 7-year run. They could be on a run for another 2 or 3 years. And that 2027 projection is still looking pretty good, because not only do you have that, you have guys that are right now in the Dominican Summer League that are hitting crazy stuff at 19. You've got prospects sprinkled all through the minors. You got JP France, who's on this roster. You don't know if he'll make an impact. Hunter Brown's going to be massive this year. Parker Mashinsky is going to come into his own this year as well. He's going to help out. I mean, you've got so much that's right. And someone mentioned something here. They were like, hey, your projected lineup with Tucker hitting 7th, that's insanity. I know it's insanity, but you're going to have to juggle this lineup and put these guys where they see fit and where Dusty Baker sees fit. More than likely, someone like Tucker is going to move up. But here's the issue with someone like Tucker going up or moving someone down. Like, who are you going to move down? I mean, you've got all these players, Eric, that 1 through 7 would literally be a 1 through 4 on any roster in the major leagues. So now it's not about where you hit, it's what you do when you're hitting. And Dusty Baker did a good job jostling the lineups. They're going to do a good job this year. And those guys are not going to be having their hats hung on where they're batting. I mean, they're not going to pull Pena out of the 2-hole. More than likely, Altuve will be your leadoff guy. They'll keep the top 4 or 5. But yeah, does Tucker deserve to be second or heck third? Yes, Tucker deserves to be up top. But you have a wealth of talent, and I don't think it matters to these players as much as it matters to some of us. It's amazing what we're seeing. And not only the hitting, the pitching. We're not even Eric, we're not even talking about these pitchers. I cannot believe this.
Justin Verlander went on a date with the Dodgers today. He's also courting the Mets. He's courting the Yankees. And on the side, he's kind of got the Astros being like, you know what? If I don't get a ring with somebody else, I'll come back to you. Just wait around. If I don't get a better offer, I'll come back to you, Astros. Just wait there. But yeah, if Justin Verlander doesn't come back, the Astros will be fine. And just imagine if the Astros get Brandon Nimmo somehow, some way, this lineup, who I said this on the TikTok live, Eric Huysman could basically be the catcher and hit, and the Astros will still win 106 games. I'll just go walk up and be like, "Oh, I'm just going to strike out, so I'll just go sit down." But basically, that's how good this lineup will be. Martin Maldonado, Corey Lee, whatever Corey Lee can do, great. But Nimmo would just be so much, would just bring so much to this
Nimmo
team, and it's
would
just
be
amazing.
he
Yeah,
would be a huge addition, Eric. He would be. I mean, if Nimmo joins this team, you might as well shut the league down in 2023 and just go straight to the trophy
right.
ceremony. I'm dead serious. And look, I really think Verlander's 2 landing spots, if it's not Houston, is the LA Dodgers or the Mets. And I think the only way he goes to the Mets is if they lose DeGrom in that. But you know what? Wouldn't it just piss the baseball world off if we got Abreu and we signed, let's say, like a Benintendi, and then we also got someone like a Jacob DeGrom? I mean that would just. I know we're not going to. I'm talking more
I
fantasy
know.
here right now, but that would be just the bee's knees, man. I look, and I asked the question, are our signings being hurt because Jim Crane is quote unquote the acting GM? Because we know he put Fergus in charge, but we know he's really running the show.
Right.
And apparently, with them getting Abreu, that's massive. He wants to spend. I would be willing to bet a little bit that they go over the CBT this year. I mean, if they're going for broke, if they're going for World Series or bust again, you might as well. I mean, if you're going to break the bank, do it in style.
Yeah, and I know that MZ was talking about Austin Davis. He said that this is the guy that the Astros signed to a minor league deal with an invitation spring training. He said that he has a great spin rate. We'll go ahead and ask Lindsey Crosby if he knows anything about him tomorrow. But this is MZ says he's a prototypical Astros pitcher. He hasn't had a great start to his career, but yeah, we'll look at that tomorrow. So thank you for bringing that up. But yeah, it almost feels like Jim Crane is trying to build a ultimate fantasy team. Just like if you have a hole in your roster, just go sign the best player available. And I know in the past that hasn't worked for the Yankees. It hasn't worked for the Dodgers outside of the shortened season. But with this team, with the pitching, the bullpen, and just imagine if you had a consistent order where you had hitting up and down, where it wasn't just a top five, and then sometimes they struggle. So I just think that do they need Brandon Nimmo? No. I think you'll probably see somebody more like Andrew Benintendi or somebody like that. Maybe somebody that can hit for a high average, maybe not a lot of home runs at this point in his career or something like that. So definitely something for us to discuss, but the Astros have brought in uh, Jose Abreu to kind of wrap up this part of the show. We'll go ahead and do extended show for the YouTube audience.
Yeah,
But just last year, Abreu had 15 home run with 75 RBIs. He has played a lot at Minute Maid Park, including the playoffs. So this is, and we do remember the incident where Tommy Lasorda, no, that's his name. He got mad at somebody getting hit. That was Jose Abreu that got hit. So
interesting. Okay.
it's just kind of ironic that he's coming to play with the Astros. But he's got a lot of great friends with the Astros. A couple years ago, he had breakfast, a Cuban kind of breakfast delivered to the Astros when they visited Chicago. So he's that type of guy, and I think that he's gonna be a perfect fit for the Astros clubhouse. Somebody like Cody Bellinger, I don't know if he's gonna be a perfect fit, but just keep in mind that he will be 36, so you're paying him for his 36, 37, and 38 season. Gurriel, he kind of struggled in that last season of his contract, so hopefully the Astros get their money's worth, but the Cleveland Guardians were reportedly trying to sign him to a 3-year deal. Then the Astros came in and said no. we want him. And so anyway, that's all we got for this audio edition of the Locked On Astros podcast. We'll go and continue the conversation. We'll answer your questions on YouTube. So if you're not watching YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube. Make us your first listen on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Check out the Locked On Astros podcast. And while you're doing that, go ahead and check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. My computer's going everywhere. The biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and a take of the day. Available on your Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast.
Yeah, so Eric, this is great. This is a great conversation. We've got several people on here asking questions about the Astros and stuff. But one of the questions I want to get to, Dalton came in a little bit later here, and he said, what about Lee's usage next year? Corey Lee, they have invested a lot in Corey Lee. They have a lot of confidence in his game. I think he's gotten lost in the mix because of Maldonado being the mainstay, and Maldonado's importance it has never been stated more clearly than it is on our show. And I believe Des and Brian do it as well on Beyond the Diamond. And there's a lot of people out there that really do Astros podcasting that really do a good job, I think, of defending Maldonado and his purpose and place. But Maldonado is the guy that's going to be kind of the dad or the grandfather to Corey Lee. And Corey Lee is going to get an opportunity, I think, in spring training. You're going to see what he produces. I don't think they bring in Contreras. I don't think they bring in another catcher. I think they stick with what they have. And if it goes to the form that I'm talking, okay, this is only if they keep Corey Lee and he is the backup, he's going to have a ton of play. He's going to have not play in time, but he's going to have room to grow. Maldonado will be the catcher a majority of the season. He will catch so much that we will ask the same questions we did in 2022. Hey, when is Maldonado going to rest? Because he is that guy. He brings more than just behind the plate catching, pregame planning, all that stuff. So I think Corey Lee has the best chance to have the most playing time outside of Martin Maldonado. But I think in Martin Maldonado, if they bring in another guy like a Contreras, then why are you trying to develop Corey Lee? Then you might as well trade him because he's pointless there. I think Corey Lee is a guy that they're going to try to develop. And one other guy, if he doesn't get picked up in the Rule 5 draft, the Astros will probably put Corey Julks on the 40-man roster. And Corey Julks will get a chance to play if he's not picked up on the Rule 5 draft. You're not going to let a guy go that doesn't go Rule 5 but has all the tools and is hitting the way he's hitting. So he's another guy that could surprise and come up on this roster. It's a conversation I was having with a minor league guy earlier today. Sorry about the tangent. I just was thinking about him since I was talking Corey
Well,
Lee.
if he doesn't, I'm pretty sure he's going to be taken, but if he's taken, he doesn't have to be added to the 40-man roster until next offseason. If they need him, sure. But once the Rule 5 draft happens, they don't have to add him. So once the Rule 5 happens, then nobody can take him until next December.
No, what I'm saying is if they don't take him, what I'm thinking is I think he is a guy that has a chance to be added.
Yeah, at some point during the season, yes.
Yeah.
And help. So, yeah. Okay. I thought you meant like right away. I'm like, well,
no.
They would have done it already. So going back to Corey Lee, if you look at his stats in 2022, he batted .238 with 25 home runs and 76 RBIs. He did strike out a lot. He had 127 strikeouts and 404 at-bats in AAA. So that is a lot of strikeouts. He had 47 extra base hits. So his BABIP is 281. And overall, he has some good numbers. His OPS was 790, which is decent for a catcher. The batting average is low. He strikes out a lot. He may not always get a hit, but when he gets a hit, 1/3 of them are going to be home runs. It's kind of like Martin Maldonado, but I think that Corey Lee is going to get a chance to play. And if they do sign Wilson Contreras, I really don't think he's going to do a lot of catching. I think that he's going to be the primary DH. I think that Corey Lee has shown that he can handle the Astros pitchers. The main concern was the offense. Was he ready? And he didn't look like he was ready when he was up here, and he was struggling down in AAA when he came up. But when he went back down, man, he got on fire.
Yeah, he did. He did get on fire. So, there are a lot of rule changes that, people are asking us about, or that we haven't really talked a whole lot. And I'm on TikTok live, and they're kind of watching the show with us, and our TikTok fans are asking us, and I'm sure our YouTube fans are wanting to know, like, what effect the shift going away will have on the pitching. We talked about, Kyle Tucker. We talk about Yordan Alvarez and how it affects them positively, but how much of a residual effect will it have on the pitchers themselves with the shift gone?
Well, I think Framber Valdez is the one that could be hurt the most because he is a ground ball pitcher. But I think that the Astros still have a good enough infield to make those plays. One concern is I don't know what Jose Abreu's scoop rate is and how many balls he gets out of the dirt, because that's something that Yuli was good at. And so because the Astros, they have some good arms, Bregman, you have Pena, and then you have Altuve, but they do throw a lot of balls in the dirt. So can Abreu handle that? I'm sure he's been doing this for a while, so I'm sure he can. But that would be a little bit of concern. But I think that you're going to see some of the ground ball pitchers struggle a little bit. But Javier relies on strikeouts, I believe. If you think about Urquidy, he relies on the fly ball. Then who else? Hunter Brown. He's still kind of iffy. We don't really know what he relies on. I think he's more of a strikeout pitcher, but he's still early in his career. So I think that Framber Valdez is going to be one of the biggest guys affected by eliminating shift.
And I
Yeah,
guess
he's gonna
the
be fine.
only
I'm not saying he's gonna suck.
no, no, but no, and I definitely would never insinuate you would say that Framber would
Yeah.
suck, but I think for him, he's a ground ball pitcher that actually works in his favor. And
And
so,
hold on, Samuel. We said this is going to be a we cut off the audio version. This is like a post show for YouTube only.
yeah, yeah, thanks, Samuel. Here's your sign. Anyways, just messing around, but I love what's going on. The Astros are clearly in on other conversations now. Look, there might be 29 clubs in on conversations. I mean, the Orioles are in on conversations we don't hear about. Just because they're in on a conversation or a player or reach out doesn't mean they're going to sign him. I don't know where the Rizzo being their top priority came from, if that came from the Astros camp or if that came from a agent from, Rizzo's camp. But clearly, like you had mentioned earlier with Chandler Rome, he had said that they had really been eyeing Abreu this entire time. And I like Abreu better because you know what Abreu doesn't have that Rizzo has? He doesn't have back problems. You know what Abreu has? He's played 96% of the games that he has been in uniform for. This guy doesn't miss games. He's healthy. He stays healthy. And I would encourage y'all to go on YouTube and look up Jose Abreu's slow motion swing. Go look at his swing. Go look at the mechanics. His minimal pullback on the bat, the way he gets his front foot down, just his hips opening up and his hands staying back. And just when his hands come through, his hips have already accelerated through the zone, Eric. And that's why he's such a good contact hitter. He barrels the ball with power, and it's from his feet all the way up. He is a textbook hitter, and I love that.
Yes, somebody asked if Phil Maton is still in contract. Yes, him and his broken hand are still under contract. I'm sure he'll be ready for next year. So, we're going to talk about him a little bit tomorrow. But Anoli Paredes, he had a great year, so he could be a factor in the Astros bullpen next year. So the Astros have a lot of options in the bullpen. So I don't see them going outside and getting a lot of bullpen help. I do see them possibly bringing in a depth starter, maybe somebody just not some big name. Like I saw Johnny Cueto, he did a little thing earlier today where he had it's the Reds, but it was also Dusty Baker, and so that was his new profile picture. And I'm like, okay, he may be going back to the Reds, but why pick Dusty Baker? Is that kind of way of saying he's going to pitch again with Dusty Baker? But that would be kind of a good signing. He's kind of at the back end of his career, and that's somebody that the Astros could use. But same time, you want to further develop Hunter Brown and make him be the starter you want him to be. So I think that the Astros they need to get a DH and maybe I don't know. I think
I
DH is
don't.
the primary
Yeah,
position.
I don't think they
Michael
need two more
Conforto would be
players.
perfect.
Conforto would, but what is? I mean, doesn't he have? Isn't he like an injury guy? Didn't
Yeah,
he
but
come
he
off?
he can't play the outfield because he had shoulder issues. So he could have joined the Astros, and there were reports that he was close to signing with the Astros before rosters locked, where that he wouldn't be eligible for the postseason. But he could only play DH. And so the Astros needed the DH spot last year, but that they have an
Well,
opening this year because Alvarez could be playing left field.
but I think though too, you've got to look at guys like Hensley and guys like that because I really think that I don't think you're going to see Diaz is going to really be a part of a lot of things going forward. I think Hensley steps into his role very nicely because Hensley's got confidence. Hensley has plate discipline. He
Right.
hits for power. He's not afraid of the big moment. He stands in there. Again, he plays every position. I really like what I see. And so at the end of the day, look, I like David Hensley to make an impact this year on the roster. Several games in, we're going to see him on the field getting big hits. So I think for us, I think we're going to kind of wrap it up here. This has been a great extended edition. Thank y'all for hanging on with us and checking this out. You guys are getting. Oh well, hey, thanks, Sam. Look, we appreciate that you appreciate us getting Abreu, and if you want to buy an Astros Abreu jersey, that would be awesome. I may actually get one. That may be my next Astros jersey. I may get a Jose Abreu 79 jersey. That's what I think I'm going to do for next season. Opening day, I'm going to have my Abreu jersey on. Let's go.
Alrighty, so guys, I think that's it. We're gonna save the rest of the conversation for another day. Don't forget that tomorrow we're gonna have Locked On Astros prospect host Lindsey Crosby on. We're gonna be talking about the Astros minor league system. We may even ask about Corey Lee, what he thinks about Corey Lee, and a lot of the Astros. I saw some names that people were throwing up in the chat earlier. So definitely some Justin Durden, I think is the name that we'll be talking about tomorrow. So make sure you tune in to us. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. Make us your first listen, and we'll be here all off season. I'm excited. Jose Abreu is a Houston Astro, and I'm excited. And that's all we got. And we'll see you tomorrow. And go Stros, and hopefully there's another move in the making.